Hello folks, it's me again, Amanda Enderman, your trusty tour guide in the wonders of the wonderful city, also known as Rio de Janeiro. Who here can't even function before drinking coffee? The reason why I'm asking you this, by the way, leave your answers in the comment section below, is because on this video I'm gonna talk about, as you probably guessed by the title of the video, the coffee cycle in Brazil, which was the #1 defining characteristic of the Brazilian Empire. It was fueled by coffee. Before I get right onto the theme of the video, I have to remind you that I'm currently offering walking tours through the city of Rio, and all of them are described on my website, which the link will be in the description box below, as well as in the first fixed comment. So all you have to do is click there, text me via WhatsApp, that's very important, make your reservations, and let's get to know the city of Rio in person, folks! With me, your trusty tour guide, of course. Now, without further ado, let's get right on to the theme of the video. It can be said that while young future Emperor Dom Pedro II was growing up, so was coffee. As a matter of fact, the boom of coffee production was in two separate moments. Firstly, in the interior of the state of Rio, in the Paraíba Valley. Then it migrated to the interior of the state of São Paulo, and there is where it really boomed in terms of production. And to this day, the state which is most well known for producing coffee is São Paulo. It even gave rise for a certain way of doing politics in the early 20th century, but I will get to that in further episodes of this series, so stay tuned for that. And it was precisely on the banks of the Paraíba River, which is a river that crosses the interior of the state of Rio, the plains of São Paulo, and the south of Minas. The wealth generated by coffee was so much that there is even a coffee branch drawn in the flag of Imperial Brazil, which I have already spoken about in the video of historic flags, which I will leave the link up here in the cards for you to check that out if you like, and I hope you do. It was pure capitalism. I saw on a video by Brett Cooper, if I'm not mistaken, or unless she has erased it, but she mentioned that at least in the US, I'm thinking she was talking about the US, that the best coffee is produced by communists. I was astounded, to say the least, to hear such a thing, because it's, the very least, a complete U-turn. Because originally, and to this day might I add, in Brazil, actual coffee production, the actual grains, could not be more capitalist. And you'll see it along this video. Coming back to the flag, it was decreed in September 18th, 1822, and said decree was signed by Dom Pedro I.
Through this decree, and with the approval of my state council, I determine the following: that the crest of arms of this kingdom of Brazil, which shall be from now on in a green background, a golden armilleric sphere, crossed by the cross of the Order of Christ, and it will be circled by 19 silver stars in a blue orb, and the royal crown will be drawn on top of the crest. The sides of the crest will be hugged by two branches, one of coffee and one of tobacco, as emblems of the nation's commercial wealth,
Nothing communist there.
represented in their own colors and connected by the bow of the nation.
There's even a very cute bow connecting the two branches. It was not only very, very capitalist, but very patriotic, in fact.
But Amanda, how did all of this begin?
Good question. It's kind of controversial, but the most accepted hypothesis is that it began in 1727 when Francisco de Melo Palheta, a man from the state of Pará, smuggled, the little devil, to Brazil a few coffee beans. He smuggled them from the French Guiana.
How come the French Guiana had coffee?
Because you see, already in the 17th century, coffee started being presented, shall we say, in Europe. It is said that the Enlightenment came about because the meetings of the Enlightenment thinkers were held in coffee houses instead of taverns, as other past rebellions had been. Because unlike wine as well as beer that have kind of a depressant effect, it makes you wanna take a snooze, coffee does the opposite. It wakes you up. It stimulates you. It gets things going up here. It was already introduced in Europe, but it was seen as something very exotic, sold by merchants in public squares, or it was seen as something for the upper classes to enjoy. It wasn't very popularized just yet, even as far as the 18th century, mind you. But since France was well acquainted with coffee at this point, the French colonies, such as the French Guiana, began having coffee plantations because, of course, they expanded the plantation to the colonies.
What else are colonies for?
Anyways, when this military man brought the seeds to Brazil, he planted them in the state of Pará, which is in the north of Brazil. And the plant spread, being planted at first in people's backyards, but it spread as far as the state of Maranhão, but it also spread throughout the northeast. However, even in the end of the 18th century, Brazil produced very little coffee, like 1.5 tons a year. So consider the size of Brazil, basically nothing. It was in the 19th century that coffee began expanding. So much so that at this point, between 1790 and 1830, coffee went from being just something people planted in their backyards or very little produced along the year to being responsible for 40 to 45% of Brazilian exports. That was because the elites who had been responsible for the independence of Brazil, remember, I already made a video about this, which I'll also leave in the cards above for you. They saw in coffee their salvation, shall we say, because sugar was declining, tobacco, even though it was in the flag as well, was also declining, and we had cotton plantations, but they were stagnant and declining as well. We never actually invested in cotton like the south of the US did. It was just a minor thing for us. Clothes can be made of other materials. The place where coffee actually thrived in Brazil, unlike sugar, as I said in the beginning of the video, remember where it was? In the southeast, which is the region where there are the states of Rio, São Paulo, Minas, and Espírito Santo.
But Amanda, why is that?
Unlike sugar, which thrived not only here in Rio but also in the northeast, coffee, in order for it to thrive, it has to be planted in relatively steep areas, humid as well, and with temperatures between 20 and 25 degrees Celsius. I'll have it written here how much that is in Fahrenheit. Thinking in Fahrenheit is not automatic for me because here in Brazil we use the metric system and it works. Also, it shouldn't be planted in land which is too wet or too dry. That alone eliminates the north of Brazil, the northeast of Brazil, as well as the Midwest. In the north, where the Amazon jungle is, either it's pouring rain for 6 months of the year, and the other 6 months of the year, it doesn't rain. So either the soil is drenched in water, or the soil is dry. No. For coffee. Also, there are no steep areas. It's more flat land and very dense forest. Temperatures between 20 and 25 degrees simply do not exist in the north of Brazil. It's right next to the equator, as is the northeast. It's piping hot over there. If you get 30 degrees Celsius, it's cold for the north. And in the northeast, as I said, it's piping hot. Not only that, it's very dry, similar to deserts. So once again, the land is mostly dry. It rains very, very little along the years for coffee. But in the southeast, we check all of those boxes. Check, 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 check. There are a lot of mountain and mountain ranges. To go to Petrópolis or to Teresópolis, you have to go up the mountains. As well as there is the mountain range, the interior of São Paulo, called the Serra do Mar. Check for steep areas. And even in Rio, there are several steep areas as well, especially in the neighborhood of Tijuca and in the Corcovado Hill as well. Temperatures between 20 to 25 degrees, that's winter here in Rio. We get even lower. Sometimes it gets to 15 degrees. Check. Also, it rains here in Rio, yes, and in the southeast, but it rains more in the months of March and April and in the month of September and October, though it doesn't pour rain like in the north. It doesn't rain every day in those periods, but it does rain more than in other times of year. And also we have summer showers, those very short rains in the afternoon. We have those in the summer as well over here. It's safe to say that rain is quite balanced along the year, which ensures that the soil isn't drenched, it's not constantly flooded, and also it's not dry. No wonder that when coffee was planted here, it was like,
Here's where I'm gonna thrive. It's party time.
bringing it to the city of Rio, because after all, this channel is predominantly about the city of Rio. To my great surprise, as I was researching to make this video, there were coffee plantations, small ones of course, in the city of Rio and in the downtown area of Rio. Expected that there would be coffee plantations in the Tijuca forest, or even in Gávea, which, as I mentioned in other videos at this time, was the outskirts of the city of Rio. And also up the hill of Corcovado. That all makes sense, so no surprise there. But one of the first occurrences of coffee planting, but once again in the backyards of people, so very small, but still, was in the Rua dos Bartolos, which is current Evaristo da Veiga. Right in the downtown area of Rio. Also, it was in the plantation of Father Couto in the area of Medanha, which was the main coffee plantation, which was also in the city of Rio, and it was from there that came the seeds which were planted in the interior of the state of Rio, in the big farms, in the big coffee plantations. As you can see, not a dull moment when you're learning history. And some people even think that history is boring. Little do they know. This concludes this video about the coffee cycle in Brazil. And I hope you liked the video. I hope it stimulated you, as coffee tends to do. And if it did stimulate you, if you did like the video, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, share this video with as many people as you possibly can, so that each time more people may know of the wonders of the wonderful city. And as usual in this channel, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!